Today for Veterans Day, I have a quote from Woodrow Wilson in 1919, back when they used to call it Armistice Day, before it was Veterans Day. To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory. And with that, please mute your mics and let me share my screen. Oh, I cannot share my screen unless I'm the host. So somebody else, if they'd like, who's the host, would like to share the American flag. If not, it's totally okay. And let's get into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And back to the presiding officer.
All right, thank you, Sam. Today our theme is Veterans Day, and I'm going to introduce our Toastmaster of the morning, and please welcome David Wetmore.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Good to see everybody this morning. I see we do not have any guests, so we'll get right into it. Today, we're celebrating Vets Day, which we actually celebrated yesterday. And it just seems like as time goes on, in a public setting, when you ask for people that have served in the military, there's fewer and fewer hands that go up. And I have mixed feelings about that, but those feelings are for another day. This morning, let's welcome Samuel, our grammarian, with the word of the day and what he will be looking to as our grammarian. Please welcome Samuel.
Thank you, David. Today's word of the day is astute. I like to use it instead of the word sometimes clever or intuitive. And the definition is having or showing an ability to accurately assess situations or people and turn this to one's advantage. And usually the context that I would use this the most would be that individual is an astute businessman, or that individual is just an astute strategist. And I will put that in the comment. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Samuel. This morning, Carrie will be our first speaker, and her evaluation will be by Deborah Moore. Deborah, please share with us your evaluation comments.
Actually, David, I believe that Elizabeth is the first presenter. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you are. I misread that.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Dyslexia.
I totally get it. So Elizabeth is going to be speaking to us today, and her objective is the connect with your audience. She's working on that pathway. And the purpose of that is to practice skills needed to connect with an unfamiliar audience. Some of the things that she'd like us to keep an eye out for are flow, clarity, and filler words. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Deborah. This morning, Elizabeth Jackson will be speaking for 5 to 7 minutes. Please give her a warm welcome. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I am sharing my screen. What you're looking at is ZD. ZD is a 76-year-old man who just broke his leg. He is feeling a lot of pain. He has requested pain medication for his broken leg. And his doctor decided to give him morphine. So ZD is wondering, how is this drug going to work in my body? We are going to go through the journey of how the drug that ZD took goes through his body and eventually stops his pain. This journey can be summarized in 4 simple steps. The drug morphine is taken by mouth. The body absorbs the drug. The drug needs to act. So it's looking for hooks all over your body to bind to so that it can do its work. Morphine has hooks all over your body. It has hooks in your lungs, in your liver, in your kidneys, in your brain. So the morphine travels through your body and hooks. Find these hooks and hooks on them. The next step, which is the 3rd step, is the drug then activates the hook, which is called activating the drug receptor. So now these hooks are activated. And when these hooks are activated, the pain is essentially blocked. But it's not that simple. For morphine, morphine has 3 types of receptors or hooks, and they are called mu, kappa, and delta. And the morphine must be able to bind to these hooks in order to work in your body. So how does a drug bind to the receptor? Well, the drug can activate or inactivate a receptor. Activation may increase or decrease a particular cell function. And also a drug such as morphine can actually bind to multiple hooks or multiple receptors. For morphine, it will activate all the 3 pain receptors, which is the kappa, delta, and mu. Part of the problem is when the mu receptor or the mu hook is activated by morphine, guess what happens? It decreases your respiratory function, which means slowed breathing. The other problem is if the kappa is activated in addition to the mu, it increases sedation, which means sleepy. Just feel like you want to take a nap. Then also there's another problem. When the kappa and the mu are activated, this also decreases your gastrointestinal transit or your stomach transit. That means, guess what? You're going to have constipation. Whatever is in your stomach is not going to move as fast. So when a dose is given to someone who has pain, the things that we want to keep in mind is the 3 receptors and what they're going to be doing. So we want to decrease the pain, but at the same time, we have all these things that might not be so good for the person. In fact, there was a study that was shown with mice. The mice did not have mu receptor, and what happened was, no matter how much morphine the mice was given, they had very little sensitivity to decreasing the pain. So we do need to activate the mu receptor. However, we need to balance all the 3 chips. Eventually, we want ZD to be, I'm trying to go on to the next slide. We want ZD to be happy and be able to play tennis, without feeling as though he's drowsy, he's feeling as though he cannot breathe. So we have to be able to balance the 3 chips. And that is how morphine will work in ZD's body. Thank you. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's 76-year-old man. He's sounding younger every day. Carrie is our next speaker. This morning, Carrie's speech will be 15 to 20 minutes.
Dave, can we have a few moments just to give some feedback to Deborah on Elizabeth's speech?
Oh, thank you. Let's take a TV timeout
Yes.
and send your comments to Deborah on Elizabeth's speech. Anybody need a little bit more time? Moving on in our program, Lynn Ayers will be evaluating Carrie's speech this morning. Her speech will be 15 to 20 minutes and will provide for a Q&A time. Lynn, please let us know what you'll be looking for in Carrie's speech this morning. Please welcome Lynn Ayers.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. You already gave my introduction of her purpose, but I'm going to repeat it in different words. As you can see from the agenda, her speech is Out of Pathways, Dynamic Leadership, the fourth project in that pathway. The purpose is for Carrie to learn about and practice facilitating a question and answer session. Like you say, it's a 5 to 7 minute speech, a formal speech, and then it's followed by a Q&A. Purpose is to practice delivering an informative speech and running a well-organized question and answer session. So she's responsible for managing time so there's adequate opportunity for both. So that's the project that you will be listening to from Carrie. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lynn. This morning, Carrie's speech is titled, How Much Should We Fear the Coronavirus? And the title of her speech is, How Much Should We Fear the Coronavirus? Please welcome longtime Toastmaster, Carrie Corbett Owen.
The headlines shriek. Europe shuts down amidst new COVID fears. Kate Brown introduces new measures for the coronavirus. Fellow Toastmasters, I ask you, how much should we really fear the coronavirus? Let me first start with some interesting stats. And what I want to show you is that death rates, although the confirmed rates keep going up, if you look at this chart, you can see that we have an explosion of confirmed cases. Look at the death rate right on the bottom. Even when there has been a spike in confirmed cases, the death rate has not followed that trend. Now, it goes without saying that the more testing you have, the more confirmed cases you're going to have, right? But here's the interesting thing. If we look at what this journal says, it says that there is a decrease in unadjusted mortality rates over time, and it's observed across all age groups. So what they're seeing is that there is a reversal of the death rate, and even though confirmed rates keep going up, the death rate keeps going down. The other thing is that, did you know that in the USA, The average age of death from the coronavirus is 78. Now think about this. 78 is not far off from the average life expectancy of someone living in the United States. Now, admittedly, depending on your age, you have a different risk. So if you're 60 to 69, your risk rate is 3.6%. If you're 70 to 79, it goes up to 8%. And above that, it goes up a lot more. So what I'm saying is, let's be cognizant of it. Let's be vigilant of it. But wow, should we really fear it as much? Now, a few questions that I think we should be asking ourselves. What causes the declining death rate? Well, first of all, I think we've learned a lot that we didn't know when this virus first made itself known to us. We have new treatment options. We're learning to treat earlier. It's also a truth that younger people are getting it. And so their vulnerabilities are different. They have fewer comorbidities than the older population rate. We also are having lower viral loads because of mask wearing and social distancing. We're learning to protect the vulnerable better, and we may be having some herd immunity as the confirmed cases go up. So those, I think, are all good reasons to be vigilant, but not be over fearful. Because here's the problem. You know what? If this is how you feel about the coronavirus and your heart is palpitating, what you're doing is dropping the vibration of your body. You're actually increasing your chances of getting the COVID virus because your immune system drops along with the drop of vibration. And that's what fear does. Fear also adds into your system acidity, cortisol, which is the hormone which is released when we're in a state of fear, also produces a lot of acidity in the body. And acidity is at the root of many of our diseases. Now, the interesting thing is that fear vibrates at 4 hertz, which is a very low vibratory state. So when we're in a state of fear, as I said, we drop our entire frequency. We stand more chance, because we've knocked out our immune system, we stand more chance of getting the virus. And if we're in a state of fear when we get the virus, we actually have a lesser chance of our turning on our body's healing mechanisms so that it can self-heal and does what it does so naturally when we don't interfere with it. So scientists took some rats, and what they did was they taught them to respond to a sound by freezing, and then they measured their frequency. And what they discovered is that by lowering that frequency, the immune system went completely offline. And if you think about it this way, the COVID virus vibrates at about 5.5 to 14.5 hertz. It cannot survive in a body that's above 25 degrees hertz. And that's important because if we're in a state of fear, remember I said that fear drops our frequency down to 4%. Now, if you're in a state of love, your body is vibrating at 528 hertz. So if you're in a state of love rather than a state of fear, you stand a much lesser chance of catching the coronavirus and of having ill effects from that coronavirus. Being in a state of kindness, a state of peace, all of those things are really good for building up your immune system, which of course is exactly what we need to make sure that if we do get the virus, we're able to handle it and that we have a lesser chance of getting it. So I say, you know, in my book, Your Body Song, 18 Minutes to Health, Happiness, and Longevity, I talk about how we are all vibrating beings and that our health in general is determined by how we vibrate and what we're putting out into the world. So I say, wear your mask, by all means, sanitize, keep social distance, be vigilant, but don't be over fearful, fellow Toastmasters. And now, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them. So you may want to unmute yourselves.
I can ask the first question, hopefully here. I noticed you went into some portion of your speech about vibrations. Maybe I'm making this too binary, but does this relate a lot to people with like high vibration, low vibration energy when you're referring to love and fear, etc.?
Absolutely. And just so that I can show you, I want to show you what it looks like around the body as well. Oops, I clicked leave meeting instead of share screen. And now, oops, oh, just a sec, sorry, share screen. What I wanted to show you is this. So when you're in a state of high vibration, if you look at your energy field, and this is measured using a galvanic skin test, which measures vibration. If you can look at the right-hand image, what you'll see is that you have a much bigger and complete energy field surrounding your body than when you're in a low vibration. When you're in a low vibration, your energy field has holes in it and it's much less substantive. Did that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Great. Any others?
I'll ask the second question. You stated that it was 25 degrees Hertz.
Yeah,
And if your
the coronavirus is 5.5 to 14.5 hertz.
and if your body is 25 and higher, you're less likely to catch the corona.
Yes. So in
that's
other words,
25 Hertz or 25 degrees.
25 hertz. Sorry. Thank you for asking that so that I could clarify. Yes. So it struggles to be active or to survive when your body is vibrating above 25.5 hertz. Thanks, Crystal. Anyone else?
Carrie, you said that where fear was 4?
4 hertz. Yes, I keep saying degrees, but I mean hertz.
That is extremely low, isn't it? Compared to the state of love, which you said was 528.
Yes. Well, you see, the thing with fear that I think we don't really take into account is that when you're in a state of fear, your body preferentially diverts everything away from your digestive system because it starts getting you, on the alert for fight or flight. So from that point of view, it shuts down everything in our system. So we're just vibrating at a very low rate.
Interesting.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where can we go to order a copy of your book?
Oh, you can go to Amazon. It's available on Kindle. It's available on in print. And I also have copies here if people want them.
Awesome.
Kari, is that 9:45 from the beginning, or is this my question time that is at 9:45?
This is the entire time. So it's counting up. It's running, and it's when it hits 15, we'll get the green.
I just wanted to clarify that. Anyone else have any questions?
Barry, David, I have a question on, so I'm in an environment with a lot of healthcare people, and I'm not as careful and healthcare oriented as they are. And I'm wondering about in social settings, one approach would be just to entirely avoid them.
Mhm.
But for me, that's not realistic. And I'm wondering how you might, if you had any insight into managing social situations.
Yeah, David, thanks. I think that's a good question. And I do think mask wearing is important. I think sanitizing, washing your hands, maintaining your social distance, trying not to touch your face. So I think all the things that we hear about on a day in and day out basis, I think if we do those, but also what I would do is I would focus while you're in those social situations on projecting love to the people that you're working with. Because when you do that, in addition to all of the other measures, you're actually boosting your immune system and giving yourself such a better chance of not getting COVID anyway.
So by projecting love, that's a little bit hard to do in certain situations, but projecting a warmth and a caring, I think that's what you're talking about,
Yeah,
as
yes,
opposed
sorry.
to like an aggressive or negative attitude or tone in how you present yourself.
Absolutely, you hit it on the head. And when I say love, I'm talking about the love that's kind of agape. So it's a universal love rather than a romantic kind of love. So yes, care and compassion, just as valuable when it comes to protecting your immune system. And interestingly enough, there's a lot of research that I'm looking into the moment that shows that our emotional state, our vibration, actually affects the people around us. So our vibration raises the vibration of people around us. So if you can stay in a state of care and compassion in amidst a group that is panicked and fear, you can actually mitigate some of the effects of that fear and panic just by staying as the calm in the storm, or just by staying as the caring, compassionate person in the middle of that fear and panic.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I think we've got time for one more. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
Carrie, is this kind of like they say when you meet somebody, smile at them, they will take that and it will help improve their entire day?
Well, not only will it help improve their entire day, Lynn, but a smile produces all sorts of things like dopamine and serotonin in your own system. And that smile might just change somebody's day and they smile to the next person. So it's a little bit like the butterfly effect. We never know how our one smile in the morning affects the lives of multiple unknown people, maybe even around the globe. And so I think that when we're able to do just those small things, not only is it good for our cellular health, but actually it's good for our world, because a group of a country that is so fearful of COVID is putting a lot of bad vibration into the universe. And what kind of a world do we want? Do we want a loving, compassionate universe, or do we want a fearful universe? Because we're busy creating our reality. And I'm sorry, that's probably a wrong place to end on, because that asks a whole lot more questions. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions. I yield control of the meeting back to our Toastmaster, David.
Carrie, I want to thank you for both interesting and informative presentation this morning. I especially enjoyed the Q&A session, and I think the club found that most beneficial. Okay, after all that talk about health and sickness and love and fear, Kevin, it must be time for some humor. Please welcome our humorist for today, Kevin Katz.
My grandfather survived Agent Orange during the Vietnam War, and my great-grandfather survived mustard gas in World War II. I come from a line of seasoned veterans. What do you call...
That took me forever. I don't know why.
I got it now. That's funny.
What do you call a veteran who sleeps in a bathroom stall? A lieutenant. A bunch of US soldiers were marching across the field in Vietnam. One of the guys says to his buddy, "Hey, do you see where we are?" He looks around and realizes they're walking through a massive field of marijuana. The soldiers started breaking off plants and stuffing them into their clothes and their helmets, as much as they could fit. Then their commanding officer comes over, sees what they're doing, and shouts, "Finally, about time you boys started listening to me about camouflage."
Okay.
I asked my veteran friend what the first ranking is in the military, but I couldn't get a straight answer. He just kept telling me it's private.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
please. Kevin, thank you for an excellent job this morning. I only understood 1 out of 4. And you didn't say, tell me it's not so, that your grandfather served in the Vietnam War. Did you say that? That was
Well, I did say that, but I don't
that was
always have
almost
to tell the
most
truth.
painful. So thank you. This morning, Crystal will be leading us in table topics. Crystal, we have plenty of time, so take it away. Please welcome Crystal Anderson.
Thank you, David Whitmore, Toastmaster. Table topics. This is the table topics portion of our meeting, and it's designed to help our fellow Toastmasters to increase their extemporaneous speaking skills. I will ask a few members for a 1 to 2 minute speech or talk on the specific areas. As the table topics master, I will select members to speak extemporaneously for 1 to 2 minutes on the theme of Veterans Day. My first question will be to Lynn. Do you have or have you had a family member who is a veteran? And how did you honor him on her on Veterans Day?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Yes, my dad was in World War II. He fought in the Battle of the Bridge in the 30th Division, which was the front point for much of that part of the war. He survived, came home, had a lot of PTSD, which they didn't know what it was at the time. Whenever he gets involved in a movie about the military, here's the noises, the machine guns, the bombs going off, he reverts back to that time, breaks out in a sweat, has to leave the room. It's tough for him and for me to acknowledge his participation in that war, because he is still so sensitive. I mean, here he is, 96 years old, and he was in his, I think he was 20 or 21 when he was in Germany, and has faced that for more than 70 years, dealt with that. And I really appreciate his contribution and how he has stuck to it in spite of his PTSD effects. I would like to be more astute in responding to his situation, but I think that's an area that actually my wife encouraged me to call him yesterday, which I didn't do, and say thank you. Maybe I don't do that enough. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Lynn Ayers. The next question will be for Kevin Grant. Okay. How did your community honor Veterans Day?
Well, typically, before the current situation, Vancouver's always had a parade. We have a relatively I would say, large military veterans community, because we have a large VA hospital in Portland, Oregon. But so it's a important holiday in the local area, and I think it's an important holiday to most people, even if they don't display their appreciation publicly, because a lot of veterans are private people who don't like to speak about their experiences, but it is a very important holiday, and I believe my community does a good job at recognizing the veteran contribution during the holiday. So after the current situation, we can get back to normal and do the normal ceremonies to recognize the military contributions to our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin Grant. The next question I will ask to Janet. If you were a veteran, how would you like to be honored?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I appreciated, Lynn, you mentioning the fact that your wife suggested that you call your dad to thank him. And you know what? I have a son that was in the Marines when we invaded Iraq, the first war over there. And my car broke yesterday. And you know who had to come and save me? Was Jeremy, my oldest son. He drove me home. We were together for about 40 minutes. And I asked him, I said, what are you going to do today? He said, well, it's Veterans Day, and it's also, it's Veterans Day, so I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I've been working long enough. And you know what? I forgot to thank him. I really did. So I made myself a note. Thank you, Lynn, for that. When I get done today, I plan to call him up and say, Jeremy, I really appreciate your service. So we're very, very, very blessed to live in this country. And I believe we really should honor them and be grateful for all that they do for us. And having Veterans Day is a good reminder of that. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet Baker. I have one more question, and that will be to Sam. If you were Sully's caretaker, Sully he was former President George H.W. Bush's service dog. What would you do to make him feel special?
Ooh, I gotta do a very special. I gotta get my mind into that specific character, which is so hard for me to do here. But great question, Crystal. I believe I would work first not to be a nag, so no whining, no, not going into my own problems and trying to make it about me, but make it about George. And I'm not sure what else. I perhaps would also just try to be playful, take his mind off of any of the stress if he looks stressed, and just be able to alleviate the situation a little bit more as well. Other than that, I'm not really sure, but great question there, Crystal. I may need to come back to you and answer once I have more time to think about it. Back to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you, Lynn. The question to Lynn was, if you had had a family member who was a veteran, how would you honor him? And his response was that his dad was in World War II and that he had PSTD, and he's now 96. And he didn't call him on yesterday, but he will call him soon. This question 2 was to Kevin Grant, and the question was, how did your community honor the veterans? And he said normally they would have a parade. However, now there is a big VA hospital, and they don't really like to speak about their experiences. However, when time goes back to normal, they will resume their usual ceremonies for the veterans. The third question was, if you were a veteran, how would you like to be honored? And that question was to Janet. And she spoke about her son, Jeremy, and how she forgot to thank him. And she feels that everyone should be honored for their time and efforts who served in the military. The fourth question was to Sam, and it was, if you were Sully's caretaker, what would you do to make him feel special? And Sully was the dog that was the service dog for former President George H.W. Bush. And he said he would make him feel playful, and he would have to come back to think about that question. So thank you everyone for your participation. Back to you, Toastmaster David Whitmore.
Great. Thank you, Crystal, for a great job this morning on table topics. Now we move into the evaluation phase of our meeting. Leading us with that this morning will be Grant Kevin Adams. Kevin.
Yeah, so evaluation is a very important portion of the meeting, so we can all improve our skills. We had 2 excellent speeches today. And first speech to be evaluated will be the speech by Elizabeth Jackson. So I'd like to invite her evaluator to give their evaluation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Thank you to Elizabeth for the opportunity to really take a look at what she presented to us. I really enjoyed personally hearing about it because I happen to be on pain medication right now. So it was really educational for me. I really enjoyed the way you took the 4 simple steps, the layout of your presentation in the beginning, and giving some quantifying some aspects of the information you were going to share, because you were so knowledgeable on this topic and there was a lot of information for us to take in. I really enjoyed the physicality of when you were talking about being tired. You kind of moved your body and expressed that in a physical way, and that was enjoyable to see. You wanted me to take a look at flow, and I thought it was really well organized and flowed nicely through the entire topic. One thing I would suggest is when you're sharing your screen on the slides is maybe go full screen. That might have made it a little bit larger, and maybe make the slides a little bit more, I don't know, for me, they were a couple of pictures which were fantastic, but maybe make them more meaningful, put a little bit more information on there because you were doing a lot of knowledge download to us. So that may have been helpful. And a little bit more vocal variety may have helped too, because I know that you were, again, passing on a lot of information. So maybe putting some pauses in there to create some variety for you. But what I did notice is you did not use a lot of filler words. So fantastic work on that. And let's see here. Oh, you were very astute on your topics. So I really appreciated all of the knowledge that you shared. And you wrapped things up nicely and you had a fabulous conclusion. So thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Deborah. Our next evaluator is the longtime Toastmaster, Mr. Lynn Ayers.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially you, Carrie. This morning, you demonstrated your ability at leading a Q&A session. Of course, you preceded that with an effective speech, prepared, a lot of detail. But in soliciting your questions at the end, we were a little bit slower raising our questions, and you did an excellent job of pulling those questions out of us and then responding to them. You demonstrated that you were ready to respond with relevant answers. You exhibited deep knowledge and understanding of your topic. And you were effective with your plug for your book. If one of us wants more information about vibrations, understand the concept, check out your book. So if we had questions, you gave us an opportunity to learn more about what you were talking about. A couple of things that did come to me while watching your presentation. When you're using your PowerPoint to show us the actual data, I think you didn't use full screen. And some of the words were difficult to read. Another is that I would suggest you just adjust your camera so that more of your body can be seen with your gestures. Because we only saw you like from about shoulders up. And so a lot of your hand motion, we were therefore missed. To really challenge yourself, I would suggest slow down a bit, allow us time to catch up, because you gave us a lot of information. And I think when you started out with your data about the mortality rate actually going down, if you had put more drama into it, because I'd never heard this, I just assumed that as everybody got sick, the death rate went up accordingly. And that was a real surprise to me, and I think you could have really enhanced that. Once again, you exhibited your consummate talents and skills at speech giving. And I think this one was very good. You really demonstrated in a very effective way your ability at leading a Q&A session, controlling the situation, bringing it to a close at the appropriate time. I look forward to you doing speeches like this in the future. Madam General Evaluator, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lynn. Next, we'll move on to the grammarian. Today, that's being filled by Sam Khalil. So I will invite Sam to give his report.
Thank you. Today we had two uses of the word astute by Lynn and Deb, and not too many filler words. Most of it was, I believe, used by myself. However, for ums, had some used by Elizabeth, Carrie, Crystal, Grant, Kevin Adams, and Janet. Also, the word so was being used by Grant, Kevin Adams, myself, and Elizabeth. And then the word and was used sparingly by many people, sometimes as a filler word, sometimes appropriately. With that, I will hand it back over to you, Grant, Kevin Adams.
Thank you, Sam. This time I'd like to have Carrie give her timer report.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Our timer report for today, we did start our meeting on time at 6:45. We had plenty of time for table topics. We were a little ahead after table topics, just by a minute. But our table topics master did a great job of really recapping and making up some time after that last question. So that helped us get more on time. She made up about 2 minutes there. Our first speaker, Elizabeth, her speech was 5 minutes, 20 seconds, which is right within range. Our second speaker, Carrie, had a longer speech between 15 and 20 minutes. The total speech was 14 minutes, 30 seconds. The actual speech was right in the window between 5 and 7 at 6 minutes, 37 seconds. And the question answer was about 8 minutes and 37 seconds as well. Our table topics for Lynn came in at 1 minute, 48 seconds. Grant Kevin Adams came in at 1 minute, 49. Janet came in at 1:24 and Sam came in at 1:07. And for our evaluators, right within range, Deborah came in at 1 minute, 58, just a hair short of the range is 2 to 3 minutes. And Deborah was at 1:58 and Lynn was at 3:05. And that is my timers report.
Thank you, Carrie. At this time, we have the evaluator of the evaluators. And for some reason, I'm listed as filling both the general evaluator and the evaluator's role. So I'll try and do the best I can.
We knew you could handle it.
Things I liked about it were both evaluators mentioned how the speeches were personally relevant to them, which I think is important because it shows the importance of having the speaker connect to their audience. I think both subjects were important. I think Lynn showed his experience in the depth and detail of which he gave suggestions for his speaker and what they could do to improve the speech. And I think it was important because both Carrie and Lynn are both very experienced Toastmasters, so it gives a good example for the rest of us as to good evaluation techniques that we can all use while still remaining positive towards the speaker and the information that they were trying to impart to the rest of us. So all in all, I think the evaluation portion went very well. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that. And at this time, I'd like to turn over control to the listener, and that role is being filled by Matilda today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator and Evaluator of the Evaluators. The role of the listener is to pay close attention to who and what everyone talks about during the meeting and ask 3 questions to see if you all were listening. So the first question I would like to ask is, in Elizabeth's speech, what are the 3 main pain receptors involved in the process of metabolizing morphine?
You was one of them, I think.
She told us all 3.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember Mew.
Yes.
I can't remember. Kappa was.
I don't remember.
Kappa was 1. The 3 pain receptors were kappa, delta, and nu. The next question, according to Carrie's speech, which hormone is released when you experience fear?
Cortisol.
Cortisol.
Result.
Yep, that's correct. And my last question is, during what time period was Janet's son in the Marines?
First Gulf War.
Yes.
The Iraq War. And
Early 90s.
that is all. So back to you, Mr. Toastmaster David Wetmore.
Great. Thank you, Matilda, for asking such challenging questions. Janet, tell us who were the victors today in our various speech contests. Please welcome Janet Baker.
All righty. Okay. Best table topic is Lynn. Okay. Best evaluator, Lynn.
Oh, God.
And for the best speech of the day goes to Carrie. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Great job, Janet.
Thanks.
So I love being your Toastmaster this morning. I want to give special recognition to Crystal for being the table topic master. Thank you for tying table topics in with Veterans Day. And I believe what your questions did was they really brought out some emotions and feelings from some of our table topic speakers. So Crystal, great job. And with that, I'll return the control of the meeting back to Kari, our presiding officer today.
Thank you, David. And what a great meeting we had today. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and being here this morning, and great energy. And thank you for that. Not quite sure what my role is kind of wrapping up the meeting, but Brent did say he didn't have anything club-wise to bring up, except for we will be having an officers meeting. He's targeting next Monday, and just watch for an email for that. And outside of, we don't have any guests to ask how they viewed our meeting. So is there anything else anyone has for discussion before we wrap it up for the day?
I do have something,
Okay.
but why don't we go through the agenda for next week, and then I'll comment if there's time.
Okay, let's hand that over to Kevin Katz to go through our agenda, make sure we have our roles filled.
You're muted, Kevin.
I'll go ahead and stop recording now. Thank you for that. And I will get that posted online on our YouTube channel.